welcome to episode 3 of the Commented Out podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Max.
And I am another one of your hosts, Addy.
I'm Veronica. I'm also host.
So we're very excited for you guys joining us, live listeners, and those listening afterwards. We have a lot in store for you today. We are very excited. So today we're gonna kind of focus on just our computer science projects. Just how we kind of got into it and things like that. Just our various experiences with that. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into it. So, kind of want to start out by asking Max, what was your first computer science project?
Um, well, it was pretty recently because I only started doing coding at the start of this year. Um, the only real project that I had, like, I did coding questions, right, for like practicing for tests and like just for practice in general. But when I had like the first like real assignment that I had, or real project, was for the assignment for 1405, which is like the intro computer science class at Carleton. And for that project, I made a pathfinding algorithm, which it basically had like a maze that was made of like hashtag ASCII characters, and it would try to find the shortest path between a point that the user inputted on the maze and like an endpoint that the user inputted. Um, Probably to this day the hardest project that I've done in computer science still, even though it's been like 3 months since I did that. But I learned a lot from it. It was super fun. I learned how to like use dictionaries properly. I learned how to use lists a lot better, and I kind of like begun to understand what algorithms were and like how they apply to coding.
It's really good. And just like for the viewers, or I guess listeners, um, like what language did you code this in?
It was in Python, yeah. So the intro to Python class at Carleton University is, or the intro to computer science is always in um, Python. I'm pretty sure most of the time. I haven't heard of anyone who took it in like Java.
Yeah, I think like I remember you finishing it and you grinded it out with like a friend of ours, right? And you guys spent like 12 hours in one day to finish that thing, and you're like, yeah! And you guys were
Yeah,
popping music to the chat. Yeah, that was so fun. I'm like, damn, Max, he really got his like project done in a day, and it was crazy. Like, what?
well, it was more than a day. It was like so the assignment due date was like coming up like really shortly, and I realized that I like hadn't started it, and everyone around us was doing such like complex assignments. I was like, damn, and I still like had next to no experience with coding. So um one of our study group members was helping me out, like teaching me like basic Python concepts that like I just didn't understand and know. He helped me a lot to like understand how dictionaries worked and how lists work. And I'd say I probably like sat in that voice call like by myself, just like in the channel, just like everyone was like staring at me, I guess, just like doing the assignment for probably like 20 hours or more, like consecutively. It was I grinded it out. It was a lot of fun though. It was super stressful, like working out what was going wrong and how to solve like the problems that I had to come up, or like that were coming up. But it taught me a lot. So
Yeah, that's really good. And like for those of you who don't know, pathfinding algorithms are like pretty tough. Like especially since it's like it was Max's first project. Just in general, they're very tough. Like even for experienced programmers, because like it requires algorithmic thinking, which like from an intro to CS class point of view, it's a little bit tough. I mean, obviously as you gain experience, it gets easier and easier, but like it's pretty impressive that that was like Max's first computer science project.
yeah,
Um,
honestly, I just the part of it that was so cool that I love the most is so the pathfinding itself isn't really that difficult. It's like the retracing your path in the end that's really difficult. And with that, I used a dictionary, and the dictionary recorded the coordinates that of the point that it visited, and it recorded the point that it came from. So the first coordinate that got to the end point, it would trace it all the way back through the dictionary to the start point, and I thought it was so cool, like because it would just go back and be like, oh, that's the point that it came from, that's the point that it came from, and like the index in the dictionary was the point that it came from, and the value was the point that it was at. So it would go, or the key was the point that it came from, and the value was the point that it was at, and it'd just go back and check the key, then go back to that one, check the key, go back. I thought it was so cool, and I thought it was so smart.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that is way better than my first project. For me, I was in a class, and at the beginning, my high school teacher, he was like, you know what, everyone here, we're all gonna make a game, right? At the end of the thing, and I was like, I'm not gonna make a game. Don't worry about it, right? So, but then this is like the first time I actually watched, like somebody play like games, and it was PewDiePie, and he was playing Corpse Party, and I'm like, I really want to make a game like this. So I tried making little haunted house mystery type of game where you'd have like little riddles, and it was not that good. However, I think something that was really important was that something that like my game teacher talked about was like you just gotta get it done. You know, it doesn't matter if it's shit, right? But because you made it, you can test it, and because you can test it, you can make it better. So I think that's really important. What about you, Addie?
Yeah, so actually, like as I was mentioning, actually in the first episode, I did a CS degree before the, or sorry, CS diploma before this, and so like my first project was like quite a while ago. But from what I recall, my first like a project was in Java, and well, the first project I remember, I've probably done a bunch before that, but the first one I remember was this like music system program where it's like there's like this a bunch of like data about music that's stored in a text file, and then there'd be like this Java frame that would show up, and it would kind of like display all of the music that's stored in the text file, and it would show like the various information, be like you know, this is the artist, this is like this is the duration, this is the song, and then as the text file got updated, it would like the frame would get updated, and you can also like directly update the values from the frame. And now, like thinking back, it was like, I think about it now, it's pretty simple. Like that's something that, you know, like back then it took me like, I would say a week almost to complete it because there's a lot of like bugs coming in the way and stuff. But like thinking back, if I want to do it now, like I could probably like just, you know, like bang it out in like, I don't know, an hour or two. And like that just like goes to show how like as you like work on more projects, just the experience that you get, like it also like very much increases your speed at which you work. Um, and so like yeah, and actually now that I kind of talked about like the first project, I also want to kind of talk about like your first websites, because this is kind of like a different like even though it is kind of a CS project, it's kind of a different like side of it, a different side of CS. I know Max hasn't had much experience like developing websites, so
Yeah, I've been
but
learning HTML and CSS over the past like day. I've just been watching tutorials.
that's yeah, that's really cool. So but like what in your mind, like what's the first website that you want to build, or like, you know, you want to kind of um
Like I guess like the classic, like the thing that I want to do is kind of like the classic CS student thing. It's like make a portfolio website, like a resume website. That's kind of like the end goal. But I feel like after doing a day and a half of research on HTML and CSS, it seems like kind of a big goal for my first. I don't want it to turn into my intro to CS project where I spent 20 hours straight. You know, I want it to be a bit more chill, especially because I'm having other classes going on right now. I'm probably just gonna make something like super simple, like something that just like shows a number on a page, you know, or like scramble. Like I remember one of the TAs for my 1405 class showed us his websites because he was taking like the HTML, CSS, JavaScript class, and his was like a number scrambler, and I thought that was really cool. So maybe just something super rudimentary and simple for the first website, but over like the next month or two, I might make a portfolio website.
that's yeah, that's a good idea. That's actually like a really good starting point. Because like it also like just because it's kind of like information that you have about yourself, right? It's not like information that you have to kind of search. So that in itself is like you can kind of just like customize it to like represent you instead of having to like look for I guess good representations of like certain information. So like if let's say you're making about like a certain topic, like I don't know, music albums, for example, um, like you would have to kind of like think about a theme that represents music. But like when it's the portfolio, you just kind of make it a theme that represents you. So it's very
Yeah.
customizable in that sense. So it's a really good idea to start off with like your portfolio website and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's also just
Um,
like a dynamic portfolio, you know? It's like not just sending someone a resume which has like a cut and paste like like algorithm of the way that the employer wants you to make it. If you have like a website, you can kind of customize it. If they're going to click on it, they're going to see like a piece of your personality, right? No matter if they like click on all the sections and links, they're still going to see like what your creative mind made.
yeah, exactly. And also like it already it says like way more like when you hand in like a personal website to like as part of your resume or like just to an employer, you show them this is my personal website. That already speaks like volumes about the type of person you are because like you went the extra mile to actually make a portfolio website and kind of represent who you are further than just a piece of paper that just says like, oh, this these are my qualifications. Because that like a resume doesn't always um highlight like what kind of like I guess developer you are, or what kind of like person you are, right? Whereas like the website, you can kind of add more feel to it, more like I guess representation of like how you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
like I think we also see this, like what you're saying was really important. How we like when you have this portfolio on a website, it does show like so much effort and like your skills in a different way. And we actually see this, or I've seen this in like different majors, like business. My friend's ex boyfriend. He went to like a business meeting or whatnot, right? And he was trying to get the job, right? An interview, and he made a PowerPoint about himself. He knew nothing about computers. He could not make a website, but he made like a PowerPoint about himself and he got the job, right? He did it.
Yeah, I mean, so on top of like showing a creative aspect of yourself, I feel like creating your own website also shows like part of like a dynamic ability of yours, right? It shows how like dynamic of a coder you are because you are confident in whatever language you're applying to the job for, right? After you go through the coding interviews. And then on top of that, they know that you know HTML and CSS and maybe JavaScript, right? So like it just shows that you have multiple or you're confident in multiple coding areas, right?
Yeah, definitely. But like talk about like the process. Like we the other day we were looking at Addie's website and then I'm like, "Oh, mine's like so totally different." And I think it's like the process that we can describe here because I think it's different for everyone. Some people make it like within like 3 days and like some people take, like a month or something, you know.
Yeah.
mhm, yeah. Um, but yeah, that's so yeah, like making a personal website is like definitely a good starting point. What about you, Veronica? I know that you have some experience with like web development. Like, what was your first website that you made?
Yeah, no. So when I was in grade 12, I had like a placement for a web development company, right? And it was small, but they really made me just do my thing. And I made like a little submission form with like a map and whatnot. That was in HTML and CSS, right?
Mm.
And the thing with that, right? I thought like this stuff sucks, right? Because I had to make like a little database too, and like that sucked, and it wasn't too pretty, so that also sucked. So I'm like, there's no way I am going into web development, right? But then in university, I just came back from a job fair. I was talking to this dude, and he was like, "Hey, how about you send me your portfolio, and I'll send it to a friend who's looking for a UI UX designer." And I'm like, I don't have a website. I do not have a website. So that day I ran into my brother's and I'm like, what do I do? Like the last time I made it, it was so ugly and it was bad. Like, what do I do? And he's like, okay, Veronica, how about we think about why it was bad, right? And I was like, okay, well, I used HTML, I used CSS, and it was like over like a span of like the whole entire co-op thing, right? And and so he was like, okay, so let's search up some videos. And I think the reason why it looked bad was because it was, in HTML and CSS, and that's why I also took a really long time, like, to learn the two languages too. So then I started using React, and funny enough, right?
Ooh,
Like
fancy.
yeah, I started out by myself with like a little template, and that made me a little bit more lost because there's so much stuff you don't want to ruin it because it looks perfect, and like connecting it to GitHub, that was already kind of kind of difficult. And but the thing that really helped me was like I worked on it with one of my friends, and something important about websites, right, is that or like just side projects in general, you have to put in like some time or make time in the week, like even if it's 30 minutes or like an hour, because me and my friend Evan, we work on it, like we try to work on it like once a week for an hour, and that really helped me because at first I had no idea about what Bootstrap was and it wasn't really working. So, or no, sorry, I didn't know what React was, and so really helped me to just spend time, and I found out what Bootstrap was, and that really helped me. It was like React Bootstrap. It was more templatey, and it was my first website, or no, my second, or my real first website, because the first one was really bad. And
Wait,
so
what's
that was
React?
my
I'm
process.
not familiar with the language.
Oh, Max, please just forget about HTML and CSS. Like that is not
Uh,
only ugly, it's hard to learn. It takes a really long time to learn. Some people might disagree with me, but I'm just saying, go
yeah.
with React and go with Bootstrap React because it gives you things where you can actually understand it. It's kind of like the Python of of
Oh, I
of
see.
Uh,
It's
website.
just it's
okay.
like symbol. Okay,
Exactly.
let me get
I would
Addy's
disagree
opinion
with
though,
that.
because Addy is
Yeah.
the HTML. He has the most experience with HTML, CSS.
Are you?
Yeah, I would very much disagree with this starting off with React because it's very important to learn HTML and CSS before because you need to understand how like where all these things are coming from, right? Because if you start off with Bootstrap, anyone would be like a web developer, which I mean that's kind of what the point with Bootstrap is. But it makes your job easier, but it's still like important to learn the core concepts of what HTML is, what CSS is, how what page works, how both of them like interact with each other, because you want to kind of like be able to um, like if let's say like your website doesn't look good or you want to like kind of tweak it, customize it according to you. If you just know how to do like Bootstrap and React, for example, you're already limiting yourself because like you have to kind of work with what the framework is providing you. So Bootstrap and React are frameworks, basically like libraries that kind of um,
Wait? Do you
provide
know
like
what like Blueprint is like for game development or like Blender?
never
Oh,
worked with that, so
never
I'm not
mind
sure.
then. It's like so Blueprint is like a they basically use like it's not like actually coding. It's like they use like blocks, and then you can kind of they give you like these set of tools that you can use to create a game or like a program or develop a animation or something, right? Is it kind of like that, but is that what React is to HTML CSS? They like give you like tools that were made with HTML CSS, but do you understand?
um, yeah, well, yeah, kind of. So that's kind of what React is. It's basically just like a library that provides you with pre-made like functions and stuff, and like kind of like expands on HTML, kind of making your job easier to like code a website and like make it look good. And like Bootstrap, like for example, like it provides like classes or uh, like ways to make your website look nice without having to write like complicated HTML or CSS code. Like it kind of just writes the stuff for you because it's already written. You don't have to like write a whole big CSS file just to make your website style nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like the thing is like it's still really important like in my opinion it's really important to like learn HTML and CSS before because um I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Python libraries like kind of like what a framework is like a Python library or like any other language like the libraries that you use. It's kind of what a framework does. It provides you with methods and like
So it's
other
kind of
things
like
that you could
simple
use.
graphics, but for like
Essentially, yeah, that's kind
yeah,
of that's kind of like what
it
you
gives
can
you
think
like
of
you
it
can
as.
make this shape, you can do this, like you can
Yeah,
add
so
this
so think
link.
of it that way. So let's say like you use simple graphics without actually knowing what Python is. That's kind of what you'd be doing like
Oh, okay.
by using like React or Bootstrap without actually learning HTML CSS. Like your website will work and it'll look fine. It'll look good, but you're not going to really understand where all these things are coming from or like how to in case you get any problems or like in case you want to customize it beyond what Bootstrap allows you. You can't really customize it at that
It's
point.
less like dynamic.
Well, I wouldn't say less dynamic. I just say it's less like it really restricts you
Yeah, okay.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean one of the
Um,
parts about web development that I find super interesting and I enjoy is the fact that you can it kind of like is a little bit similar to game dev where you have like your own creative outlet, like you can make anything with the website really, right? And
Mhm.
I just find that super interesting. You can kind of like instead of just focusing on coding, you can focus on different aspects. Like maybe you made like an animation or something that you want to put on the website. Maybe you made like you can do a whole lot of things with it, right? Because it's a website, and I just think that's really fun. Like in contrast to like just like coding an algorithm, right? Like you actually like get to see what you're working on, and like you get to see it in pretty colors and like whatever. It's just a very intriguing thought to me, given that most of the coding that I do is like currently in my current coding class is like making databases or like converting temperatures, stuff like that. Like something that like might be like or it's kind of simple and like especially with like objects. It's like I don't know. I can't really see what's happening beyond like the output, and it's super like I guess demotivating. I feel like if I were to work on HTML and like a web dev project, it'd be super fun to see like the actual website up. It's also just like super cool to make your own website, right?
For sure. Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that. And that's kind of what I meant like when I brought it up in the beginning, right? When I was um like HTML CSS is a different type of comp project. That's kind of what I meant. Like it's like a whole different type of like feel when you're actually coding because for like a comp project, like a regular one, like you're saying databases, things like that, they're much more, I guess, algorithmy and like you're focusing on like making your program more efficient and like making your software the best it can possibly be, space efficient, time efficient, whatever. But for a website, like especially if it's just like a static website that's showing you information about something, um, you focus on making it look nice and making it like easy to use. You focus on the UI, on the design, making sure that you know anyone could use it. And so that's why like it's a whole like different type of vibe, like coding um, in HTML and CSS and just making a website. Um, and yeah, and that's kind of like coming back to the original point, like what Veronica was saying that React is like more valuable to learn than HTML CSS. Um, it like React and Bootstrap help you look like help your website look nice easily, but they don't teach you the basics. You don't really understand what's actually going on, right? So that's kind of like my kind of wrapping point with regards to that, which is why I kind of disagree with the statement that it's better to learn React than to learn HTML CSS.
Yeah.
I got to know one thing, Addy.
Yeah.
I got to know one thing. You
Mm-hmm.
answer this with no bias.
Okay.
So, if we're making a website for commented out, are we using React Bootstrap or HTML and CSS?
Oh,
So
I
you're
want to go with
actually
HTML and CSS.
yeah,
No,
you're
no.
jumping you're jumping the gun on this one. So like basically like this is kind of we're gonna come to that. But I would say like Bootstrap would be acceptable, but I personally would want to make it majoritarily HTML and CSS just for the learning experience. Nothing against like using Bootstrap and stuff like that, just so we can actually learn how to um, code in HTML and CSS. And we'll kind of like I guess I'll give more details once we kind of get to that point in the podcast. But like, um, there would be a reason why I'd want to use HTML and CSS rather than just using React and Bootstrap and calling it a day. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, wait. So I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit because about something you talked about earlier. You said your first coding project was in Java. Did you learn Java before Python? Was that your first coding language?
Yeah. So my first coding language was actually Java. Python I learned in my second year. So like, well, not second year here, but like my second year from my previous diploma. So like, I personally like felt that it helped me out better to like understand other programming languages just because like we kind of got the concepts of like OOP and stuff like that drilled into our mind and like Java in itself like it's kind of more strictly typed, right? Like because
Yeah.
like the types and stuff they all have to be declared. whereas like Python, you kind of just like go on the fly, it just interprets it.
Yeah.
And so like I personally feel that that was very valuable. Um, and so like yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, yes, I did learn Java before learning Python.
Doing Java
Uh,
now, like, because I'm in my first term of learning Java, I feel like it would have been so much harder to like learn coding comms, especially like coding problem solving. Like, I feel like a huge part of like how I was able to focus on just like the problem solving aspects of coding was the fact that I didn't have to like pay attention to all like the side stuff that is involved with Java. Like, I could just write the problem out instantly. I didn't have to deal with anything else. But now with Java, like I feel like learning the concepts of like object oriented programming and like just like defining variables like with like integer variables, float variables, double variables, all those things would have just added like weight to the problem if I was learning it in first term. Like, I feel like it would have been so much harder to start with problem solving in Java.
yeah. And yeah, so like you're learning Java now, and like you probably like if you learned Java before, like it would have been much like it would have been much harder to like start off with coding, right? But like you do think that it would kind of like um it would be easier to learn Python after learning Java than it would be to learn Python after learning
Yeah,
Java,
yeah,
right?
definitely. But I
Yeah.
feel like overall it probably would have been the same amount of work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, that makes sense. Like it's kind of like to each their own. I personally feel that like learning Python after Java really was like kind of like a whoa, this is
Yeah,
different. This
yeah.
is easy.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, I can see that happening. Yeah. It's
Wait,
also
but
just like another aspect of it, right? Is like coding is so scary to like people who've never done it before, especially for me, right? I feel
oh,
like if
for
I
sure.
started with Java, I would have like dropped out. Like looking
That's
at
that's
Python was just like so like, oh, I understand this. Like, I remember learning Java in the summer before my first term, but like I didn't understand any of the stuff that I was learning. There were so many like concepts being thrown at me that I couldn't understand because I wasn't sure what it was like relating to. Um, but with Python, it's really intuitive. Like, you can tell because it's basically English, right?
exactly, yeah, and that's kind of the point. Like where even like the creators of Python, like they wanted to make the language very readable. So like a standard that they developed, the PEP 8 standard. The reason why they're strict like they are is because they want to make the code readable. Because you spend more time reading code and reviewing others' code than you do actually coding, which is why it's really important to make your code like readable. And like you were saying, it's kind of like English, right? So um, like it's that's kind of like why Python is in that sense is a good starting point too. So I guess there's pros and cons to both, like starting with Java and starting with Python.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of bringing back to the website talk, like well, I guess I'll start off by saying what my first website was. My first like I guess unofficial website was this like website that I made on Dreamweaver. So it wasn't actually a website; it was just literally just like drag and drop items. Until it looked somewhat decent. Um, if I look at the code today, like that code, like it looks disgusting, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
It was if I recall correctly, it was about some cars and just like a catalog of car pictures and just talking about the history of cars. And then it had like this link to like some article that talked about the history of cars and stuff. Um, but after that, like after I learned HTML and CSS, my first website was actually a fake like bubble tea shop website.
Wait, what do
So
you
like
mean? Like, it was like a
so
store?
yeah, yeah, so it was basically like a website that I made for like this like fictional bubble tea store that had like the menu, the location, and like a bunch of pictures from the quote unquote quote view from the outside of it. And like what kind of things they sell, their employees, like about us, and like this contact us form or whatever. So I actually have to like find that website. I have no idea where it is right now, but like I'll try to find it. Um, but like I look back at that and I'm like this design is disgusting. Um, but yeah, so kind of just going on with the whole website talk. Something that we were deciding to do moving forward with the podcast is that every month we kind of start learning a new language or a new framework or new technology, and like throughout the month, every episode we kind of talk about our experience, like learning the language, problems we ran into, perhaps like a project that we were like working on, and then like what road bumps we like went through while we were working on that project or learning that language, what we found interesting, things like that. And so I think since Max doesn't have much experience with HTML, CSS, that would be a good starting point. So like basically what we're thinking is throughout the next month, Max will learn HTML, CSS, and he'll kind of work on his like personal website or website of his choice, and just talk to us about like the progress that he's making learning it, and like the things that like he found interesting, or like bugs, I guess, interesting bugs that he had to fix throughout the week or the month. And like Veronica and I, we can like, since we kind of have experience with HTML and CSS, we can kind of like start
Guide me.
like we can kind of start working on like some other website and just like talk about like what that website is about, the progress that we've made, kind of provide like updates every week. And yeah, and like every month we can kind of rotate like which language we're learning, or which framework or which technology that we're learning. And I guess once we kind of move forward with HTML, CSS, the month after that, we can actually get started working on the commented out website, which will be pretty interesting. And actually, that's kind of what I was referring to when I said later on in the podcast, when Veronica mentioned if we make the commented out website, like once everyone's on an equal ground, once Max has learned HTML, CSS, and everyone's kind of like somewhat equal into knowing how web design works, we can like get started, make decisions on like what kind of frameworks we want to use, if we want to use Bootstrap, if we want to do vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript, stuff like that, and then kind of get the ball rolling with that, and then have it deployed, and then provide the link, get some feedback, things we can improve on, stuff. And I think will be very interesting, because it's gonna like force us to kind of challenge ourselves, and also like provide us with like new things to talk about in the podcast every week, and kind of have this like recurring theme as we go forward.
Yeah, and like I feel like if you did build a website, or like we are learning these new things every single time, we're kind of tackling new problems each time we do that, and I think that really helps us for like coding competitions, like global game jams or hackathons. Like I know Addie and I did like one recently. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so like a few like weeks ago, we had a hackathon that I took part of with like three other friends of mine. We built a Discord bot that helped with like queuing during events, so, like managing, for example, office hour queues, or managing like event queues and stuff like that. And like that made it, because we noticed that there was a recurring problem, especially with online learning, everything shifting to like Discord and stuff. We noticed that like it was kind of very hard to like manage queues for TAs, because like they'd kind of be like, oh, so who's next? And then there'd just be like a bunch of people like, oh, can I get added to the queue? Can I get added to the queue? And then it'd be like, oh, I don't know what the queue is right now, so someone tell me who's next. And the students would be like, I have no idea. So we kind of recognized that problem. So we started like we created a bot that's actually like that actually kind of helped out, and we actually pitched it to a few teachers and stuff, and they found it interesting. So that was pretty cool. That was a really nice experience. And I think that like Ronco was mentioning, learning the new technologies every month will also help us like kind of broaden our horizons, and like make new projects, work on new things, and just keep on like just, I guess, expanding our portfolio and stuff too. So it's like, I feel like it'd be like a win-win situation, and also force us to challenge ourselves to like learn new things, which is kind of like a big thing in CS as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Force is a friend of ours, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that's awesome. Like, for me, I actually wasn't that, or no, I think I was still important, but I wasn't like a developer in my global game jam. And I think that's something really important to highlight because when I think of like hackathons or like global game jams, I think, oh, your only role there is to be like a coder or like a developer or whatnot, right? And that's not true. Sometimes you need someone to design, like how are you gonna market the thing, and I was the product manager, so I was on Trello. It's organizing people's schedules, making sure everyone's on task, and how everyone's components, they add up to one big product. And what we made was like a game called Grape Juice Robot. You guys can check it out on Global Game Jam's website, and that was really fun. Like, I didn't know these people. I know you were on a team with like people that you didn't know. These guys, it was crazy. I had no idea who they were, but I think that's a really good part. I hope if you guys are going into Global Game Jam or a hackathon and you're with a group of new people, you get good people. I had great people.
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that hackathons and like global game jams are very important because they like kind of allow you to like apply your knowledge outside of like the classroom setting, because oftentimes in a classroom like you'd be getting an assignment, so like everyone's working on the same thing, whereas for like if you're working at like if you're going to a hackathon, it forces you to like kind of learn the teamwork aspect of it. Also like it forces your creative thinking because you're kind of designing a product from scratch, right?
Mhm.
And so like that in itself is like a really valuable experience to have, and also like employers really love that too. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely. Having
Mhm.
like a project on your resume, if you don't have experience, projects is the way to go. Also, I don't mean to cut it short here, but I actually have to go now because it's my birthday dinner. So,
Happy
see
birthday.
you guys all. Thank you for having me. See you next week.
right. Yeah, so I think we are rapidly approaching the final mark, the final. We don't want to extend it too much either. So in terms of just closing remarks, I think it's kind of recap everything that's been said so far. I think it's very important to work on side projects, go to hackathons, learn new things. Just always just keep forcing yourself, like keep challenging yourself.
Yeah.
I know that like when I started coding, I was just like, I'm not as good as the next person, or like this person might be better at like coding than me. Like why should I go into this field because I'm not even as smart as this person? But that is like totally not true.
It's
If
all
you force yourself,
practice.
exactly, it all comes with practice. So like I was mentioning in the beginning, that first like application that I made, it took me like a long time to like figure out how to do a bunch of things. But like now that I look at it, I can probably like quickly just like bang that out within an hour or two. So like it's all about just getting experience, learning new things, just having confidence in yourself, just not losing confidence and saying, oh, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to um I'm not good enough to like learn new things, or I'm not better than the next person. The next person is like much better than I am. Like it might be true. Like they might be have more experience than you, but there's nothing stopping you from getting to that level as well.
Yeah, especially for new programmers, right? I'm someone who only started coding like 6 months ago. I could have never seen myself where I am now 6 months ago. I thought the things that I'm currently learning would be things that I'd learn like in third year, fourth year, especially something like developing a website, right? I thought that was something that would come way later on than right now. Um, and I mean, everything that led up to this moment was a lot of practice, right? Just going through all the coursework, doing all the practice problems, doing all the assignments, doing all the tutorials. And on top of that, taking the advantage of any extracurricular opportunities that were presented for me. So I did coding. I did one coding competition, right? I worked on side projects. Like it's just things that it's just all the extra practice counts when you are learning coding, especially if you're a student.
For sure, yeah. And another really good thing is lead code. So that really forces you to like force your like algorithmic thinking and like thinking kind of outside of the box. and like at first like it seems like very hard and just like your programs are like super inefficient and stuff, but like as you go like you start uh getting better and better, and you know
Yeah.
there's I guess you can just say like there's nowhere to go but up, right?
You're talking about LeetCode, right?
Yeah, yeah, leak
Yeah,
code,
yeah.
yeah.
So on top of LeetCode, there's also a website called Advent of Code. Every December they do a calendar that goes up to Christmas, or it might be the whole month, but I'm pretty sure it just goes up to Christmas. And every day they post a coding problem, uh, and you can see all the past years for it. And every day the problems get progressively harder. So if you're a very beginner coder, you can do like the first few problems on the Advent of Code, and if you're a more experienced coder, you can try to go to the end. Everyone in our study group tried, or a lot of people in our study group tried to get as far as we could on the calendar this year, and it was super fun. So it's also fun to like compete with people because you get scored for the amount of time that you completed in, who finishes it first, who finishes the most questions, the most parts. It's like a fun challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like uh so like it shows you like Max was mentioning, it shows you like that your kind of your score that you got, or like in comparison to like other people like on the leaderboard stuff. And like I got like pretty low scores. Like I'd be pretty low like on the leaderboard stuff, but like it actually forced me to think outside of the box. It like and like I spent more time than everyone else, but like if anything, if I do it again, then I'm gonna know like, oh yeah, like when I was working on this similar type of problem uh, during Adam the Code, I know this is what I did, so this would be like my approach to like solve it.
Yeah, you can
Um,
recognize the problems that came up for the future.
exactly. So like patterns, that's like a pretty big thing with like coding and stuff. Um, and but yeah, so like it's like really fun, and it's like a fun way to like learn and expand like your knowledge and just like your portfolio and stuff.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that
I,
concludes the third episode of
yeah.
the Commented Out podcast. I hope whoever's listening enjoyed. Thanks to our live viewers for showing up. And if you made it to the end, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate the support. Make sure to, yeah, I'm gonna sound like a YouTuber here. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. It really helps us out, you know. It really like just
Encourages
shows
us.
us that like,
Yeah.
yeah, it really encourages us. And like those listening on like the podcast platforms, make sure to like rate the podcast. Like give us any suggestions for improvements. If there's anything you think we should work on, like we're always like open to that thing. You know, we'd love to hear from you and stuff. But yeah, thank you once again for listening. And if you made it this far, very, very much thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah. You win
And
nothing.
yeah,
All right.
yes. All right.